I'm Alayshia. First off, this morning I hit a backflip and hit the coffee table, so I'm having a hard time lifting my hand. So if you see me do a little this and that, it's trying to loosen up. Second of all, I have a picture of my dog. The reason why I have a picture of my dog is simply because, first of all, he's adorable. And then the second part is that infrastructure as code can be fun. What is my title? I'm a customer success architect at Pulumi. This is not really a Pulumi talk, but since I work at Pulumi, I want to talk about infrastructure as code. What we'll be doing is we'll be talking about, of course, infrastructure as code, but with a little bit of twist. Most times people think of the traditional, hi, I'm an infrastructure person, I'm an SRE person. I want to do IAC, what does that look like? But I want to tackle it from different aspects, like security and stuff like that. And I have a demo, so if we have enough time, I'll demo a thing. What are the modern challenges? As everyone talked about before, the growing complexities. If we're simple and we're not innovative, then we don't make any money. And as an organization, you'll get fired. That's how it works, right? We have to meet these growing demands. And those growing demands, maybe it's holiday time, and we have to have a bunch of servers because we have a lot of people hitting endpoints, blah, blah, blah. Or we have things like, hey, we want to be more agnostic. I want to work in Go. I want to work in Python. I want to work in this. I want to work in that. I want to use this technology. I want to use that technology. We want to be able to do those type of things, and we want to be agile while we do that, which is slightly complicated. And it's complicated in a sense because as people, we're complicated. So technology doesn't really solve people problems in that sense. So there may be a group working on a thing, and I may intersect with that group. And so we have to balance how we're going to be stable and dependent upon each other for that reason. If I fast forward with the challenges, so what is infrastructure as code? It's definition. So it's basically your infrastructure as code. And you're going to manage that with some type of code-based tools. So common things like Bicep, Pulumi, Terraform, et cetera, et cetera. And why should you care? Let's see. It depends on who you are. So as a developer, there's a thing in front of me. That thing in front of me is probably, hey, I'm responsible for this experience for the customer. But the underpinnings of that is a level of infrastructure. If I don't understand that infrastructure in a way, that's okay until it messes up my workflow. So instead of being able to push out something really fast, I'm being hindered from that. And also, as a security person, maybe someone's standing up infrastructure and it's not until audit, I found out that some poop hit the fan. And so I need to know those things. I need to have a transformative impact. I need to be able to scale. I need to be able to move fast. And I need to be able to get things done. And so what is that impact? With IAC, you're able to streamline your processes. If I know for a fact that Kubernetes, right? I know for a fact that we're establishing and we're creating Kubernetes clusters, and I know they practically look the same per environment. The difference is probably a set of equivalent to variables. Then I need to be able to scale that up. And if I bring that more into the forefront even more as a person who writes code, then I can say this is just a program. And this program, we can replicate and scale this program. And so because of that, we can streamline this in a way that makes sense. So instead of daisy chaining 65 million tools and whispering to each other, well, what the hell does that do? Now we know exactly what these things do. And we can facilitate and we can make it more scalable. And in addition to that, we can accelerate our delivery cycles without being too cheesy, without being too corny. I have customers who have been in situations where I have developing teams who need to manage their own infrastructure. Why? Because they have to replicate their full-fledged production environments, and it has to be safe. And also, when stuff happens, the person who is responsible for the infrastructure actually doesn't know what is happening. And so now they can take advantage of that to understand what to do and how to drive focus with that. And because of that, we get to improve costs. And so what does that look like? I'm a sucker for analogies that I make up. I look at it as quenching your thirst. So I don't know what people are into. My favorite drink, I like a good strong Cosmo. I'm also into water. I like cider. I like juice, soda in there, things like that. So IC can be whatever you want it to be. And the purpose here is that it can be tailored to meet your diverse needs. And with it being tailored to meet your diverse needs, you can decide whatever language you want to write it in. You can decide how you want to do your pipelines, things like that. The end point and the end game here is that you get the same underlying benefits. So regardless of your role, developer, engineer, whoever you are, there's something to offer. And so for those different roles, let's see. Rapid provisioning. My human readable background outside of talking in front of customers and things, I used to do a lot of platform things. On a side note, my latest thing that I've been doing, fortunately, unfortunately, is helping people stand up their backstage platforms as a side note. And because of that, that's been a whole mess of a thing, because what ends up happening is that everyone wants a catalog. Everyone wants to be able to touch a button, and they want to be able to say, I want this thing, and in the background, I want it to happen. But in order to do that, you have to have things that make that happen. And so because of that, developers want to be able to provision things. I don't know how many times you all have been in a situation where you needed a dev environment and no one's anywhere to be found, or it takes an additional 55 minutes or 2 days or a ticket that's unnecessary to have. And so by having those things automated, it makes it much easier. In addition to that, now you have consistency. So I program a thing, I program it next to the code I'm writing, or I program it in the same workflow that I have. Now I'm consistent about things that we consider to be best practices. So instead of reading about what attributes I need and things like that, I'm living through those attributes. And what I mean by that is I write in TypeScript. And so now that I'm writing TypeScript, every time we write this piece of software, this is what it looks like. And not only are we treating our actual applications as software, we treat our infrastructure as software as well. And so because of that, we're more consistent about that. And we're more efficient with managing our resources. And so now we have visibility of what's going on. If you're managing it via automation, you could tear it down the same way. The people that are doing the clicky thing in the background, there's S3 buckets out there in the streets. Now you have just random storage out there in the streets. Now you're able to understand where those things are and stand them up and tear them down just as fast. And then now you have improved compliance. So depending on what you have, you can write compliance around that. And I'm actually going to demo all that. And so what are the benefits of that? So agility and being able to be quicker and adjust to changes. So if someone comes to you today and say, we're in AWS and we're moving to GCP, how fast can you move? If you are susceptible to just being a part of, okay, I'm using CDK, or okay, I have some bash scripts, how fast can you migrate? How fast can you adjust? If someone raises their hand and say, hey, I need to make a change to the memory of our virtual machine, how fast can you do that? And then you can be collaborative and transparent about your changes. Things are normally a form of GitOps, so they're going to be sitting in some repository somewhere. Someone's going to be able to look at that and say, oh, I understand what's happening here. These things have changed, or I need to change this, or, ooh, they're doing this over here, and I want to have that level of ownership. From there, so what is the right approach? I'm not here to tell you what tool to use in that regard. It depends. If you want to write a language in a language that you're comfortable with, if you like YAML, if you like Python, those are things to think about. If you like HCL, those things are to think about. Pricing. Do you want to be on-prem? Do you want to be self-hosted? Do you like SaaS? How much effort do you have? How much time do you have? What is the learning curve there? You need to customize it to fit your actual organizational needs. Maybe you have developers who, in fact, want to understand their infrastructure. And then sometimes, quite frankly, they don't care, which is fine too. And so you may have something for those set of people. And so that might mean you have a front-end experience. That may mean, hey, you have to hit some APIs. That may mean they can touch some CLI, whatever that looks like. And then you have to account for those humans. When you have things such as IAC or just anything in general, what is the learning curve? What do we have time for? How sour is this experience? Imagine a situation where you're forcing people to write in a language they don't care about or they're having a hard time understanding. That, I guess, stifles your momentum and that brings down your velocity there. And so what is a typical strategy? Normally, tools are free. I start there. So tools are free plus whatever language you want to be in. And then what is your abstraction type? So do you want that freedom? Do you want a catalog? What does that look like? Are you going to do self-serve portals? What does that look like? Is there a ticketing system there, hosting options? And then, like I said before, your ramp-up time. Getting started with your teams. So make sure you strategize. In my opinion, the simplest thing is to start off with a dev stack. Why? Because you can continuously blow that thing up and nobody cares about it. And also you can replicate that thing. And what is the hugest problem you have today? The most simplest problem that will bring the most joy to a group of people that will have an opinion about something. Also, understand your end users. I can't tell my friends who don't use Kubernetes go stand up Kubernetes clusters and be experts if that's not their thing and if that's not what we're paying them to do. So think about that. Plan for that and also understand what underlying permissions you need to have. And then get out of people's way. If they want to do a thing, let them do a thing. So I have a demo. I have time. So I have a demo. I'm going to slide over here. I have 3 questions since you all like to respond, which is great. My first question is, in general, do you use IAC of some sort? And I guess my second question is, you can do the down and then the up. Terraform? Okay, thank you. Bicep? Okay, thank you that no one said yes. Crossplane? Okay. Have you ever used Pulumi? Okay. CDK? Okay. Okay. It's easier for me to talk about Pulumi. Why? Because I work there, so I can get underpinning free services to spin up stuff. Pulumi is free trial, free to use, free accounts, things like that. And of course, I got to get paid and the rest of my colleagues. So we do have like enterprise and things like that. But what I want to talk about here is a perspective. And so in this perspective, at the end of the day, I'll scroll up. So specifically at 10:24, I know it was 10:24 because it was 10:24 today when I just did this because the internet was moving slow and I was afraid I wasn't going to be able to install anything. And so I'm going to walk backwards. If I'm a developer and I've never done a thing before, the easiest entry point is to work in my natural language or a language that makes sense. In general, the good thing about IAC is that it's declarative. So if you declare it, a thing is going to happen. If you don't declare it, the thing won't happen. Fair enough. In my example here, I created a folder called SREdays, and I'm using a template. And in that template, I just do a Pulumi new. It goes into that template. Let's just say I don't even know what's in that template, but I know it's going to create something of Nginx. And out of that, it's going to give me an output that's important to me. Why is that even important? Because when you're writing things for people and when you're using things in general and you need to use them at scale, there's a few things. Organization, so structure, as well as purpose. And so in this situation, without saying too much, I'm just creating an instance of this component. And under the hood, the person that's using this, I'm going to go out there and get some variables from them. And with those variables, I'm going to create this instance. And I can create it however many times I want in the background. And they don't get to see the mess that's happening in the background. So if you can imagine, as you decide to allow teams to do a thing or you scale a thing, as you can imagine in the background, there's things that they care about and things that you don't want them to care about. Networking. Networking is a catch-22. Either you know how to do it or you screw it. That's how it is. Like, you do it or you screw it. Like, that's it. Like, someone tells you these are the things and then you do them, or you give someone something and it's 20,000 lines of code. Because as an organization, we have to lock things down. And because of that, that's normally under the hood, as well as security groups that are being created. And if you want them to create things, you can. And so in my case, I'm just doing something very simple here and creating a launch template. And I'm using code to do that. I'm using codey things. I'm able to iterate, doing for loops, things of that nature. And all that's under the hood to create my end result here. And then I can output whatever to use it later however I want to. The other cool part is if I scroll all the way over here, the name of my little thing, I call it the Chicken Shack just because I like naming weird names. But the other aspect here is we're creating things and we're making it easy for people to consume it. So I have that component. And in that main, that instance is created. And these variables are coming out of here. So in Pulumi, we have a concept called stacks. So I have stacks. And those stacks basically differentiate instances of that program. So if you can imagine, I have a testing environment, a production environment. And overall, this program creates whatever for that purpose. And in this, I'm able to say, okay, things that I care about, like my instance type and stuff like that. I have some tags as an organization. We need tags, blah, 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 all that good, boring stuff. And also as a security person or as someone who cares about my infrastructure, as a human, I want to enforce something. So in this case, I told you that I call this the Chicken Shack, but the company is actually popcorn and the department is actually butter. And so I got the right department, but as an organization, we also need some actual tags here. So using code, I'm able to also say, let me remediate this as well. So I'm going out there, getting these resources, and I'm looking at those required things I showed you, and I'm just doing a thing that you normally do. Loop and iterate. Okay, I created a dictionary. All right, there's some keys and some values. If it's playground, then go and check for these values that I'm enforcing. And in here, I'm doing a thing where I'm saying, hey, load this policy that I created. And with that, once it does that, it's going to say, do I want to update? So in this case, normally with policies or whatever, you're just telling it, hey, look for that and stop it in its track. In this case, I'm telling it, look for that and fix it. And so here, I know for a fact it's called butter because I showed you that I named it that. Or popcorn because I showed you that I named it that. And it's changing that to butter for me. And it's updating those tags. So if I perform that update, it's going to update that for me and do that in the background and things like that. So I want to show you a very boring, simple demonstration of how to not only show how to structure and what that looks like in terms of, hey, as an organization, I don't care about the underground. I don't care about the background code. I just really needed this Nginx, and I know for a fact we needed some tags, and it's going to have all of the scaling group, and you told me to name it, and I just want that done. Also, something that's happening here, I'm leveraging using secrets without even knowing what the secret is, because in production, we normally don't know what our secrets are. So I'm doing that too. And in addition to that, as a group, this is not SOC 2, this is not CIS. This is, as a group, we decided we wanted some tags to be required. And so we're doing that. And so with IAC, those are things to think about. Whether it's structure, entry point, there's going to be some people who want to do something at the command line. There's some people who want to just click a thing. Think about that, what that looks like. And that's it. That's me.
Thanks so much for the demo. Is that a question or just stretching?
That'd have been cold-blooded if you're just stretching.
Hello. I've never seen Pulumi, so from what I saw, you created your resource in one part of the code, and in a completely different file, you added tags to it, right?
Oh, that's a good question.
No. So is it possible for me to modify? I'm familiar with Terraform.
Mm-hmm.
Is it possible for me to modify an object in a completely different file that I created in the same project?
Yes. So you can do any programming thing you want to do.
Okay.
So
I have to hire much better now.
Huh?
I have to hire much better now because it's a very powerful weapon that has to be used by, let's say, adults. But so, thank you.
You're welcome. But think about this too. You do have a level of abstraction. So you can create, so it's as simple as in Terraform, you have the concept of modules, right? So you can create, we call them component resources. You can also create templates. So you can get off into the level of abstraction. People can create from the ground up, or you can just create something and they can just consume it and just change the variables of it. And they just get the outcome. They don't have to see the background. You can hire adults as well as you can have guardrails for said adults too.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yep. What's your take on infrastructure as code testing?
I enjoy it. So let's talk about it. Yes. So this is my take. I don't have to give a biased answer. But I will say my take on it is it all depends. And I'm rolling my eyes because there's two parts. You have linting, that's the boring part. That is the boring part. And then you have integration. So the concept of having a staging stack or the concept of having an ephemeral stack, I agree with that concept. And so when I think of testing for IEC, there's a level of intention where you have lint test, but there's also a level of having a staging where you're understanding what your stack is going to do before deploying it. If you want me to go in more detail, I can, but I do believe in testing, but I believe in having an ephemeral stack for that.
Thanks.
I've got time for one more. One more. There we go.
No, joking.
Hello. With the environment, when you reference the production secret, what was happening there behind the scenes? Was that talking to like an SSM parameter store secret or a AWS
ooh, that's a very interesting question for me. So we have a concept called ESC, and so it's a many-to-many relationship. If you think of like a data pipeline, so when I reference that, behind the scenes, I'm using AWS Federation, but I could have used anything. And with Pulumi, you can use, if you're using Vault, if you use like HashiVault, if you're using Secrets Manager or whatever it is, you can use that to then leverage using secrets. So yeah, so behind the scenes, I was using that. But you can also, we have configs as well. And so you can also mask your secrets that way. There's a few different tricks of the trade there. But yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.